Are you looking to take your personal finances to the next level? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Monday Money Tip Podcast, presented by I Was Broke, Now I'm Not, with your host, Joseph Sangle.
Well, welcome to the Monday Money Tip Podcast, presented by I Was Broke, Now I'm Not. My name is Joseph Sangle. As always, every single Monday, we bring you right now relevant information to help you in your money journey. And today, we are on episode number
137. You can believe
episode number 137, regardless of the type of epinode or sode. It is 137, and that is awesome. And it is the middle of February.
Yes.
How exciting is that?
It is exciting.
And it's hard to believe, but the daffodils are in bloom around the worldwide headquarters of I Was Broke, Now I'm Not, Anderson, South Carolina. And that is still remarkable to me, having lived here for 23 years, growing up in the middle of Indiana. You don't really see those until like April. It's awesome. We do know the groundhog saw his shadow.
He did,
6 more weeks of winter. As an encouragement to all of you, you have approximately 4 more weeks because of the groundhog. Tell everybody what we're going to talk about today.
Yes. So today we are talking about 5 tips to help you absolutely, positively, actually follow your budget. So our question is, I know a budget would really help me make progress on my goals, but I can't seem to stick with it. Do you have any special tips that could help me? Yes, we do. Yes
is the answer. And we're going to address that today. Before we do that, though, we're going to dive into one of my favorite sections of the podcast. You know what that is. Let's go.
Now it's time to get caught up with our current money events.
This portion of the podcast is sponsored by Fully Funded Life. Are you ready to win with your money today? Join Fully Funded Life and receive way more than just financial help. The Fully Funded Life team will help you when it comes to the 4 C's. Courses, for quick instruction that move you swiftly to applying the lessons learned. Challenges, for a fun way to intensely focus on a specific part of your money journey. Coaching, for wise counsel so you can speed up your journey to your fully funded life. And community, because it can be difficult to find people with the same mindset. This community is formed with people of diverse backgrounds from all over the world who are working to achieve their fully funded life too. So learn more by visiting fullyfunded.life and start climbing your fully funded life today.
Yes. We're so excited to be able to be formally into the process of helping people in their journey in a real practical way with Fully Funded Life. It's been running and up and running for close to a month now. Super excited. We're getting to review budgets. We're getting to see where people are at, and they're all over on the ladder on rungs 0 all the way up to rung 8. And people are just learning more, and that's awesome. Today, as we talk about our current money events section, we're talking about the crazy stock market. I want to talk about the crazy stock market because the market does not make any sense. Think about this. We shut the world economy down and the market sets new records and all stocks set new records. What is going on? Well, here's what I know. Sometimes things may not make sense, but eventually they will make sense. Sometimes people go crazy and their money follows it. As we witnessed with the GameStop short selling. Did you see that? Was that amazing?
Tell us about it.
Like the GameStop short squeeze that happened where the Redditors in the group there decided that they would publicly collude together.
Oh,
so
gosh.
Since it's public, I guess it's not the definition of collusion yet. And they decided that there was more than 100% of all the stocks of GameStop company. You know, they sell video games, all that.
Yeah.
That more than 100% of that company's entire shares were held short, which means that companies, hedge funds in particular, will purchase the option to sell the stocks at a much lower price than it is right now. And other people sell that option and they are contracted to sell it at that price. Well, here's the issue. The bet is that the price will drop below whatever they said it would be. So then they can go to the people that place that other side of that bet, get them, let's say they short sold it at $5. They have to deliver those shares to me at $5. And I'm betting that the stock, that I can go get it for less than that. So like for $3. So really I'm betting that I'm going to deliver it at $5 a share, and they have to buy it from me at $5, and I'm going to go buy it at $3 because that's what the price is going to be. So the short sellers try to drive down the price, and because they're holding it short. So they speak really bad of the company, public. They say that they're holding it short. Well, the Redditors realized that because more than 100% of the company's stock was sold in options that had to be delivered on, that they would run up the price. And they would run up the price by choosing not to sell their shares of stock. So it's always assumed if you want to sell your shares of stock, you can.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, these people who were required to deliver shares of stock at a certain price couldn't even get their hands on the shares of stock. And as a result, that has to be done by a certain date in a contract. And all of a sudden, since all these Redditors went and said they agreed together, we're not going to sell, that caused the price to get ran up and almost caused infinite rates of loss to these hedge funds. They lost over $7 billion alone on GameStop stock by holding it short. So anyhow, things don't make sense. And of course, it drove up the price as high as $480 and then collapsed.
Yeah.
And so that always happens. So nothing holds true when it doesn't make sense for long. Eventually, common sense comes in. But here's what I want to tell everybody, what I'm doing in these current crazy money events, things I'm doing. And I don't know if these are right for you. All the disclaimers, I'm not a registered investment advisor. I share this just because I think a lot of people wonder, and specifically they wonder when somebody who is telling them information is trying to sell them, stocks or certain investments. So here's what I'm doing. I am, number one, I am maintaining my value investing approach. So value investing means I want good value for my money. In other words, the price to earnings ratio needs to be reasonable. The company needs to be profitable. They should be sharing those profits, some of them at least, with the shareholders. That holds the leaders of the companies accountable. And so that's value investing. And value investors haven't made nearly as much as people who just invested in all the tech stuff, the Apple, the Netflix, the Google, but also all these other crazy things like Amazon stock that has exploded. And the price to earnings ratio is very high. It would not be considered a value stock, yet it has made a lot of money because people are believing that that company will continue to expand and grow. I do own some of that within my mutual funds, but for me, I'm going with value investing. Number two, I am doing long-term holds for most stocks. I have sold some stocks for substantial gains, and then I saw later that they went up even further, and it made me sad. But I am doing long-term holds for all mutual funds. I do not buy and sell mutual funds on a daily basis, a monthly basis, a weekly basis, or a yearly basis. If you look at Joe Sengel's approach and my annual investments, which will be coming out here in about a month, I have not changed any of my mutual fund holdings. I just don't sell them. I do not buy, sell. I'm a long-term holder. That's my approach. And as I'm preparing my March, every year I do this, my Joe's Investments updates, that's going to be available to all fully funded life members at no additional cost. That's what I'm doing, and it's allowing me, I do that in part for myself, to really just review where am I at, what's worked in the past year, what surprised me, what were the things that I predicted that actually came true, and what do I believe, what are my prognostications. Just like that groundhog, Punxsutawney Phil seeing his shadow. Hopefully I'm a little better than that. But ultimately, I would tell everyone, the reason we have a 5-year rule, the 5-year rule, is because we know that in shorter terms than that, particularly within 1-year terms and 2-year terms, you can have wild swings of investments. And if you need that money within 5 years, you will freak out at the wild swings in the market. Yeah. But if you know for sure that you don't need it for 5 years and that money there is, you don't need it for 5 years, you will breathe and you won't necessarily like it and you won't necessarily want to check your balance every day. But ultimately, think about it. In March of this last year, the market dropped nearly 40%. In some cases, more than 40%. And people were selling like crazy. But guess what? The people who stayed in, they ended up the year up. Mm-hmm. And so that's the reason why it's so important to just apply and just remind yourself of whatever rule you've set for yourself. For me, I've set the 5-year rule. That's kind of the rule for the podcast. And so that's it. I'm maintaining my value investing approach. Long-term holds for most stocks. I have bought and sold a few, and then long-term holds for all mutual funds. And I'll be doing that update in March. Look forward to that.
Yeah. I would say this is one of the most common questions we get asked right now is, should I sell or should I stay? What do I do with the market? And I feel like this is a great thing to go off of. And then also in last episode 136, we really dive into that too of, what you should do with the stock market and that kind of stuff. So I'll link that episode too. But if you have questions, if you're on that bubble of should I sell, should I not sell? Is the market going to stay this way? Is it not going to stay this way? What do I do? Make sure you go back, listen to this section again, and then listen to the previous episode where we'll link that section as well. And they're both super helpful sections.
Awesome. So that's it for today's current money event section.
Yep. Okay, for our success story this week, it comes from Stephanie. And Stephanie said, after attending an FLE, she wrote this into us to say, the biggest challenge has been getting a handle on the monthly spending. It was shocking to see how much money I was spending every month once I got down on paper. It caused me anxiety, but gave me a sense of encouragement that I don't have to let my finances control me if I take the time to tell my money what to do. My biggest financial win has been taking action to cut the fat out of my budget and take a look at necessary versus unnecessary spending. I actually had over $300 left in my checking account at the end of this pay cycle, when before I would have been down to the wire and I'd been dreading potential overdraft charges. It was very freeing to not have to live in fear. And that comes from Stephanie.
See, that's incredible. I mean, I think it's interesting. We recently talked about this anxiety, this financial anxiety, and the reasons why we don't face our financial issues, and how the reason we don't is because by walking away from the stuff that's causing anxiety, not facing the facts, we get a momentary reprieve of that stress. But then the problem doesn't fix itself. In fact, it manifests itself even worse. So Stephanie faced down that fear and then took action to cut the fat out of her budget, took a look at necessary versus unnecessary spending, which I've loved how you've said this. You had to fire your
wanter.
Your wanter.
Wanter.
Aha. And then she actually had $300 left in her checking account. That's incredible. And she would have been dreading potential overdraft charges, which means she's had overdraft charges in the past, and she feels freed up to not have to live in fear. And I would just say to Stephanie, and I would say to anybody who's listening to the podcast, what is this going to look like when you've done this for a year? Every single paycheck. You're really going to be prospering. You're going to be climbing up the ladder. Pretty soon, you're going to be at least on rung 5, building that emergency fund to at least 3 months worth of expenses.
All right. So for our featured question for today, remind you guys, it says, I know a budget would really help me to make progress on my goals, but I can't seem to stick with it. Do you have any special tips that could help me? So
now I love this topic because,
I'm going to give you 5.
Man, so many people have tried a budget and it not worked.
Yes.
Right? Like you probably have, I have, all God's children have. And the problem with budgeting is many times we do it because we're frustrated. We're frustrated with the circumstance. We're frustrated because of a goal. We couldn't fund something that we really wanted to do. Our friends are able to do it. We can't do it. Whatever it might be, and we falter. And so I wanted to share these 5 tips to absolutely, positively, actually follow your budget. It's a good title for the podcast episode, actually. 5 tips to help you absolutely, positively, actually follow your budget. Tip number 1, you ready? Prepare a budget every single month. You've just got to do this. You must prepare a budget every single month. David Nimmons in our office says this, form good habits. They're just as difficult to break as bad ones. And this habit of preparing a budget that reflects reality each and every single month is the best thing you could ever do to maximize your money. And by the way, all of these other 4 tips that I'm going to share to help you absolutely, positively, actually follow your budget, they're going to flow from this one tip. So if I could just say do one thing that could absolutely do this is actually prepare the budget. You can't follow something you have not prepared. It's kind of impossible.
Yeah.
Follow the recipe. Well, where's the recipe? Oh, here's a blank sheet of paper. Here's some stuff, some ingredients. You won't do it very well, right? That's like the same as saying, I'm going to throw all the ingredients of a cake in a bucket and throw a firecracker in it because that creates heat and it's going to make a cake.
Yeah.
Right? So What would you say about that, preparing a budget every single month?
Yeah, I would say one of the big things to note is each month is different. So one month you might have 3 birthdays and a couple extra bills due. And
Like you might personally have 3 birthdays?
no, like people in your family.
Oh, there we go. Excellent.
And
So it's like in your family, or it could be your kids. You know, your kids have a friend who's having a little birthday.
Yeah, something like that where you might not, it's not an every month occurrence.
And yesterday was Valentine's Day.
Yeah, so Valentine's Day happening this month, next month St. Patty's Day, that always brings up a couple extra expenses that you're not really prepared for. Like if your kids are in school and they have to bring like cupcakes or something, you don't have a green shirt, you got to go buy something. You never know. So that's one of the things that I feel like a budget really allows you to do is you're distracting and it is not good. But it allows you to see these expenses because every month is different and not the same. So this really allows you to see those expenses ahead of time. You can prepare for them. You can plan for them. They're not a surprise when they come. You're not having to break out the credit card, which we don't want you to do for those expenses and go in debt for those. But you're already able to pre-plan those and know in advance that they're coming. You can look at your calendar ahead of time and say, okay, this person has a birthday.
The reason I'm laughing is not at you, is because you caused me to have a memory. Because as a kid, my mom would buy discounted clothes because we had so many kids in the family there. And she bought this pair of green jeans that I loved.
Oh, gosh.
And my brothers called me Green Boy because of it. And then accused me that my birthday was March 17th. And it was awesome.
Well, Logan's birthday
why I was laughing.
is March
So you
17th.
thought I was laughing at you, but you were just causing me to remember this.
Yeah.
And they would always throw a birthday party for me for a couple years on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. That's awesome. So tip number 1, you've got to prepare a budget every single month. It shouldn't be a surprise to you. You join Fully Funded Life, we're going to be talking to you all the time until you get that budget going. You've got to have it. Tip number 2 is to automate bill payments and drafts. Like whatever these drafts that are coming out or they're being paid with credit card, whatever it is, but automate the bill payments and drafts, all of them. And this is huge because it avoids the potential. It completely avoids any potential of late payments and the fees that come with them. And it also ensures that you will follow the budget. As we said, all these next 4 tips going to tie to tip number 1. And many people who are in the struggle category freak out about this tip. Why? Because they can't imagine allowing an automatic draft or payment because it could create an overdraft situation. And this is why we're so adamant that you should swiftly achieve rungs 1 and 2 of the ladder. Because if you don't know your plans, hopes, and dreams, you'll just continue to wander and falter. And if you don't have rung 2, you can't switch to this and automate all of your drafts and automatic payments. It's a big deal.
Yep. So some automated bill payments and drafts. This could include, but not limited to, automatic drafts of a retirement account, savings account, and saving for your Qs, which is known upcoming non-monthly expenses. So we'll talk about these late in the next section, or tip number 4. We'll talk about those. But I feel like one thing also is once you have this money in your account, you're not worried about it. So that's really why, like you were talking about, once you have that money, you're not worried about the overdraft situation, and you can just set it up and it's going automatically and you're not having to worry about it. But making sure you have that budget in place so that you can get to that point.
Yeah.
Or if you have irregular income, this could be a concern that you have too. So maybe you should go back and listen
I think
to the
this
episode.
is interesting. I teach this stuff for a living for 15 plus years. And for some reason, I had automated every single thing except for my giving, my house payment, and my 2 utilities. Because I have a barn that has its own power meter, and they won't add it to my house one for some reason. I don't know. But it's due 15 days different, so they send the bill different. And so I always found, it's kind of hard to forget that you have a house payment, and it's kind of hard to forget that you have a giving payment. And then all of a sudden, like, you pay off a house, you don't want to automate your giving. I don't want to automate my giving because, hey, I want to do that. Like, that's something that I like to do. I want to physically do that. But then Duke, I didn't automate my Duke energy bill. And so recently I sat there and I said, why on earth am I not automating these? And in like 10 minutes, I set it up. It's probably 6 months ago. And all of a sudden, there it is. And it's automated. And now I don't have to worry about it. I don't even care about the bill anymore. It just happens. And the margin has always been there. So I just encourage all of you, automate your bill payments and drafts, all of them. Because whether it's your rent payment, your renter's insurance, maybe it's a life insurance payment that's happening monthly, whatever it might be, when you have margin, you can automate all these and it won't matter. And so that's huge. Tip number 2, automate your bill payments and drafts, all of them. Tip number 3, use cash envelopes without fail. Now, I like doing this because I'm putting periods in sentences, like lots of periods. Without, period, fail, period. Like just use them. We're looking at how to absolutely, positively, actually keep to your budget and be successful with it. And really, cash envelopes, this really, really, really helps establish personal financial discipline. Like when you think about cash envelopes, it's really saying impulsive stuff is under control. And we've done episodes of this on cash envelopes. We've got Monday Money tips from way back in the day on how to use cash envelopes. But really, this is a fundamental way to disconnect crazy stuff that we spend money on crazily. It allows us to disconnect that from our bank account. And even if you're using a debit card for these types of expenses, and we're going to name those here in a second, but even if you're using a debit card and you're using your own money for margin, you're still going to overspend. And that's why it's so important to separate this crazy spending from all of the rest of your money. So list some of the categories that we highly recommend for cash envelopes.
Yes. So for cash envelopes, we recommend for groceries, restaurants, clothing, entertainment, and spending money. So
I'm just going to repeat them again slowly. Groceries and restaurants. It's the 2 food ones. Do you listen, podcast listener, you're running on the treadmill, you're in the car, you're out for a walk. Do you ever overspend on groceries? Do you ever overspend at a restaurant? See, cash envelopes help you prevent that. Name the next category.
All right, so the next one is...
No. The next category of cash envelope. Yeah, okay.
I'm doing Sorry. No, giving me enough credit here. All right, the next one is clothing.
Clothing. So have people ever overspent on clothing? Have you ever seen that happen? Like, do you know other people who may have done that?
Yes.
And then entertainment, right? We all can fall victim and prey to overspending on entertainment and, of course, spending money, whatever that random category of spending is. So groceries, restaurants, clothing, entertainment, spending money. Use cash envelopes. Disconnect impulsive spending from your bank account. This is a huge way to absolutely, positively, actually follow a budget. What's tip number 4?
Okay, tip number 4 is to save for Q's in each budget, and those are known, upcoming, non-monthly expenses.
Yeah, so we take the silent K from known, K-U-E, known, upcoming expenses that are non-monthly, save for them in each budget, period. If you do not save for these expenses, they're still going to show up. They are known to show up. Known upcoming expenses are known to show up. And you will constantly experience setbacks. You'll constantly be knocked back. You'll constantly fall off the wagon. You'll constantly fall off the ladder. You could be up rung 4, rung 5. Here comes a life insurance premium that's due annually. Here's the annual gym membership. And here's the HOA fee. And by the way, here's property taxes in your house too. Get fired up. And oh yeah, we wanted to travel for Christmas. Boom, off the ladder you go. And so that's so huge. So I encourage you to set a number that is really too big to absorb in your regular budget. Like if you can absorb the cost of your homeowners association fee, like I remember I used to be in a neighborhood and our homeowners association fee was $100. I didn't need to have that be part of a known upcoming non-monthly expenses. But there are some where it's like $200 a month and they have to pay it. Some of them have to pay it annually. Some of them pay it monthly. So that's a big deal. So share some different examples of these known, upcoming, but non-monthly expenses.
Yes. So some examples are annual or semi-annual or quarterly insurance premiums, Christmas, you know it's going to happen December 25th every year, car repairs and maintenance, special days like birthdays or anniversaries, and homeowners association fees and annual membership dues.
Yeah. And I think only one of those is one, or maybe two of those are really nice, like Christmas and special days. All the rest are like obligations. The others are like, yes, this is awesome. I enjoy this. But I would also throw in some others like vacation. It could be other things like a car replacement. We said repairs and maintenance, but if you're saving up to pay cash for that next car, or if you're looking to buy a house, this is a great place to include that house down payment. And saving for that in every single budget is going to do two things. Number one, it's going to avoid surprises, financial surprises. And number two, it's going to enable you to actually positively, absolutely follow your budget. And that's what this is all about. And so we have a known upcoming expenses calculator where you can calculate that amount you should save every paycheck, each and every month, to fund these known expenses. You do that, you'll be well on your way to absolutely, positively, actually follow your budget.
Yeah, I think it can be overwhelming when you see the number that you think you have to save for. So if you're looking at an annual fee that's due, it's so really overwhelming when you see that fee, whether it's $1,000, $2,000, whatever it is, or if you're talking about Christmas, like how much are you spending on Christmas? How much did you spend on Christmas last year? But when you break it up into this calculator and it breaks it up each month, the number isn't as big. It seems a lot more manageable to be able to pay that each month to yourself, kind of saving for those expenses.
100%.
Yep.
So tell everybody what tip number 5 is.
Yes. Tip number 5 is build in margin always.
Yes, build in margin in your budget always. And here's why. You never know when that surprise expense is going to show up. And if you don't have margin, some sort of buffer in your budget, then you're immediately having to take from something that's probably really important. So if you force yourself when you prepare the budget to put in this, I don't know, or I got surprised type expense, you give yourself this buffer, this glorious buffer and space to allow life to happen without it blowing up or nuking your budget and making you say crazy things like budgeting doesn't work. And so if you don't build that in, then you are actually kind of kidding yourself, because you're like, I have the ability to be clairvoyant. I can see all the way ahead more than a month and be exactly right to the dollar. But if you have buffer in there, it allows that little stuff to happen. St. Patrick's Day, surprise, you need to buy a green hat.
Green pants.
Whatever it is, green pants, some green jeans. And you can throw a special extra birthday party you didn't know you had, like I did on March 17th. And it allows you to really absorb that expense. And look, not every month will you have all those surprises. And it's a really hidden little honeypot where you can save extra money. And that's wonderful as well.
Yeah. And I think it allows you to breathe easy. So you have this, that money is there. So you're not having to sweat it every time that expense comes. Like you're saying, like it brings this level of confidence, but then also like an ease where okay, I have the margin. I'm good.
What is that word? Peace.
Yeah.
Peace be with you, right? And we love peace. So let's rattle off the 5 tips again. Prepare a budget every single month. Tip number 2 was to automate your bill payments and drafts, all of them. Tip number 3 is to use cash envelopes without fail. And 4th, save for your known upcoming expenses in each budget. And then tip number 5, we just covered, is to build in margin always. What's our quote for today?
Yes. Our quote for today is, you must be knowing where your money is going.
I like it. I was talking to somebody recently and they said that. I was in south of Tampa, Florida, and they said, you must be knowing where your money's going. And I like that. I like things that rhyme. They're easy to remember. And that's really what this is all about. And so in next episode, we're going to talk about what is a mutual fund. A lot of people are confused when it comes to investing. They have mutual funds. They own mutual funds, but they don't really know what they are. And when we say buy a mutual fund, I might as well tell them, to go buy, some green sky. They would be so confused. Like, it really doesn't make sense. We want to make sense of it. We want you to be financially confident in all areas of your money journey, including in your investments. And so we're going to talk about exactly what is a mutual fund.
Yep. And if you like today's episode, please help us get this podcast to others who could benefit. You could do this by rating our podcast and leaving us a review. And these ratings and reviews will help make our podcast better.
If you're watching on YouTube, you can click the subscribe button, click the bell. It'll notify you every time we release a new episode. And guess when that'll be? Every single Monday. Sometimes we release content all throughout the week. And the greatest thing you can do, the greatest honor, the greatest compliment you can give us is to share it on your social media platforms with others that you know could benefit. We're so grateful for you, excited for your journey. Have a great Monday, everybody.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Monday Money Tip Podcast, presented by I Was Broke, Now I'm Not. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe. And for more great content and to stay up to date, visit iwbnin.com. We'll catch you next time.